Welcome back, guys. We're on episode
Finally.
16. Darius isn't sticking around for this whole episode, unfortunately. And that's my fault. That's totally my fault. I'm sorry, dude.
Hey,
So,
shit happens.
so listen, the Cadell interview for episode 15 was short notice, and we whipped it out and put out, I think a cool episode. But it was short notice. And so, Darius, we're for any of these dudes in Japan, we work 3 time zones. We do Central Time in the States for me, the UK time for Darius, and then Japanese Standard for, anybody that's overseas. And so we're having the same issue now with a future guest too, which I'm stoked on. I think we're going to have a cool episode there. But just being like, listen, we can really only record like this one time. It's either like, and it depends too. It's either like I have to wake up at 5 a.m. or Darius has to wake up at 6 a.m. And like, that's the only way we can make it work for these Japanese dudes. So anyways, so Darius was out for that one. And this one last week, Darius, like we were talking and he was like, all right, bro, like when we schedule this thing, I'm free Friday and I'm free Sunday. I am not free on Saturday. And I said, okay, bet. And so Micah Diaz reached out and was like, yo, dude, let's make this happen. And I said, okay, bet. Yeah, what time are you available? And he was like, Saturday morning works. And I was like, that's perfect. Let's go. And I came back all stoked and I was like, yo, Darius, we got this thing locked down for Saturday. He's like, bro, I told you. So,
I mean, it's just growing pains. I doubt you guys even miss me, but this is a process that we got to go through.
You're a valued member of our team.
We're trying to figure out. Yeah, we're just trying to figure out our flow. So you got to figure out. You got to check those messages and read those messages when they come through on the Discord, and we're moving forward.
Right.
But we said we're recording this, so you guys can hear my voice and remember who I am for when I pop up in the next episode. They're like, who the fuck is this guy?
Oh, you remember me.
Yeah, it's good to make an appearance again.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were like, all right, we can only schedule this shit through emails and because listen, we've got my DMs, Darius's DMs, the podcast page's DMs, the email, like, we make ourselves accessible, but then at the same point we shoot ourselves in the foot because we're like too accessible on everything.
Yeah, like I said, it's just growing pains. We're gonna tighten up the ship. It's just 2 guys, and we both have full-time jobs, and Jared's got kids, so we do the best we can. But we were able to lock in that Micah Diaz interview, which I was able to tune in on Twitch. That was a good one. You guys are in for a treat.
I'm stoked. I'm super stoked about it. And he's like textbook, like, let's just chuck it, which I love. But for me, I don't know, man. I like my cars too much. I guess I shouldn't say it like that because it's like you could always, the beautiful thing for him is he drifts an E46. And so like those are so common. You know what I mean? If he needed to trash his shell and just like reshell it, he could do that. I'm not saying on the cheap ski because he obviously has a cage and all that shit put in it, but
yeah, it's
not like you're ruining like a classic,
Yeah,
Dude.
I mean, I bet the main difference is that's a purpose-built car,
Right.
Like, neither of us have a cars that was like, this is only for this. You could live if it got scuffed up. Typically, I won't say typically, but a lot of times drift cars aren't bought with the purpose of becoming drift cars. You buy them, you're like, I'm driving around, I want to get into this thing, and now it's ruined, and you're fucked. But
yeah, you're right.
That's my take.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Altezza, I didn't want to. I guess the Altezza was like the car I could have ruined, but I also learned in it, so I didn't have it long enough to really get confident.
Yeah.
And after drifting the 240, so we were gonna talk about that. I finally drifted my 240 for the first time in like the 15 years I've had it. And if you guys have listened to past episodes, it's just a non-turbo SR. It's got a 4.9 rear end with a Nismo 2-way, and then all the suspension and brakes are done. So like basically the only thing I haven't done on this car is the engine, as far as beefing it up. But like everything else, thicker sway bars, like everything has pretty much been touched and like optimized, quote unquote. And dude, it was so easy. Like there was one corner that I just couldn't power through. It was like you had this, do you remember at MSP that first corner where it was like a delayed apex? You went into it, but then the apex was kind of around the way, kind of like Grange. It was just like that. It was like you would initiate, and then the apex wasn't for like ever,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool. I love those kinds of corners, but you would go around that, and I would have like no speed anyways. Clutch kick it into this hairpin, which was like the reverse of that. So you went from this sweeper into a tight apex into another
Mm-hmm.
tight apex with like a sweeper out. And so for me to be able to power out through it, I would have had to have just had a ton of power, to carry me through all the way. And
Yeah.
I just could not do it. But as far as the rest of the course, like there were like straights with these built-in manjis that you had to do in like 90 degrees, and like those were all fine.
Mm-hmm.
So for the car having as little power as it did, I was like super, super stoked.
Yeah, it looked like you put out a couple of clips on Instagram, and that's all I seen. But it looked like you're having a good time.
Dude, it was so
That
fun.
track is like a karting track, isn't
Yeah.
it? It looked pretty narrow. And I would have
It's
been sketched out trying to drive on that.
it was a little narrower than MSP, but it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
it didn't feel like what I imagine park feels like. Because when I think of
Uh-huh.
narrow tracks, I think of park. I'm like, because that just looks like, so there's some spots of it, and this is all from media. I've never been there in person, but I feel like there's sections of the track where it's like when you're sideways, you have to stay in like this very small margin. You know what I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about? Where it's like, and I don't know what spots of the track that these are on, but I've seen just corners where it's like the guys are sideways and they're like bumper to bumper covering the track, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel like that at all. It felt pretty wide and like manageably drivable. And I went to leave for the day, and I'm driving down the highway, and the car's like do 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 do, and I'm like in fifth gear going like 60 miles an hour, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, because the car just starts like sputtering out of nowhere,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? So I pull over on the highway in like not a great part of town in a 240, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like. But at the same point, I was like, if somebody tries to steal this car from me, like it's not gonna run. So
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe
Wait, be
that's a
real.
fail
Would you
safe.
would you let him take it, or would you put up a fight?
Fuck no,
Would
dude.
you
I
you
don't have a
know?
gun. Like, what kind of fight am I gonna put up? If
I
dude,
don't
if
know.
you
You don't
come
have a
up,
tire iron. You
listen,
don't keep the what do they call it? The blinky. You don't keep the blinky on you.
I've got an impact wrench. Like, what am I gonna do with that?
That's the blicky. That's the mechanic's blicky. Is the impact wrench. You just pull that thing out of your waistband.
Oh my god, dude. So anyway, so I pull over and I'm like, and I have, for an NA car, I was like, this can't be a whole lot. It could be like, I know my spark plugs are good, and like I checked all the connections, and like all my spark was there, and I was like, I have no reason to think that the spark would just go. But the car sat for 4 years while I was in Japan, and I haven't swapped out my oil filter or my fuel filter. So I was like, it's probably my fuel filter, just not delivering clean gas or enough gas, or it's clogged or whatever. And
Mhm.
so I had one in my trunk that I'd been meaning to put in, and I just didn't. And I swapped it, and it like ran better than it ran all day. And I was like, this bitch. I was like, I could have fucking leaked the whole shit. I was pissed, dude. I was
Oh
like, I
man.
wasn't pissed because like the car ran. So that's another thing too, is when I was at the event, I felt bad because there was so much seat time. There were like no drivers. They just
Mhm.
ran an open grid all day, and they ran so they have three classes for Club Loose. They have, and I don't know if they call them classes or groups, whatever. So it's class A is like your caged tandem cars. You can drive 3, 4 deep, however many you want.
Mhm.
You have class B, which doesn't need a cage, but you can only run solos. And that's like your general pool of drivers. And then class C is like newbies, and that's
Mhm.
people that are learning the track in their cars still. Like those are that's the learner group. So this was class A and B only, and they would just run them like nonstop. And so, dude, seat time was like all day. Like I got out of the car and I kept telling myself like, okay, I'll give it a break. I parked the car for like 10 minutes, and I'm like, we're going back
Yeah.
out. Like the tires lasted me like all day. Which I guess this is a good time to announce it. And you've probably already seen it. If you're watching the video, it's right there. I'm pointing. This is the first episode brought to you by Tire Streets. And so I've been talking a lot, Darius. You talk about this, man. We're stoked.
Well, I mean, Jared and me have always talked about like giving back to the community, and thanking you guys for our support. So we had someone reach out to us from Tire Streets, and we worked out a deal, I guess you could say, or partnership or sponsorship to bring you guys a discount on the Tire Streets website which I mean, that's awesome. I guess.
Right.
I mean, tires is the one thing we all need. You know, they say tires is like the number one modification you could do to your car. People don't usually do that, but
Yeah, and you're
you
kind
know
of
what I
a
mean.
tire. You're like a tire snob. I feel like between the
I'm
two of
not a
us.
tire snob. I'm just, if I'm gonna spend the money, I want to make sure I get the best tires I can get for the price that I'm willing to pay. But I
Yeah.
do have a tendency to be like, hey, yo, you don't even know what tires I got on this thing.
He's like, we're
That
going.
dude, there's this dude back in Japan, man. He had a GT, is it a GTO, Mitsubishi GTO? And he thought he was like the fastest thing out there. And I was like, bro, I
Who is
got
this?
non-kangs on this thing.
Oh, Mitsubishi GTO.
Yeah. And I just told him just off rip, I'm like, yo, like your tire game's not even touching my tire game. Like you're not gonna be able to catch me. Like your car might even be faster than mine, but in the corners I got you. But
Your
anyway,
tires are
that's beside the
plastic,
point.
bro. Darius brings up a good
But
point, man. When they reached out to us, it was definitely like, how can we make this happen without changing the format or making the show obnoxious with ads? And they were like, dude, just run an ad or talk about what you want to talk about or whatever. And basically like it's beneficial for us because it's like we get cheap tires, you get cheap tires, and they help us support the show. So it's a win-win, dude. We're really, really stoked on it. But that's what I was going to get at was I ran their Acceleras, I ran the Fies at the last event, and they lasted me all day. I was able to air down more, and it just felt like, I shouldn't say that. Let me rephrase. So I normally have to run super, super high PSI in those just because, I've used like lower treadwear tires in the past and had gone super high. The Fies, the nice thing is that they're a 400 treadwear, but they're grippy. And so I didn't feel like I was skating all over the place, but I was able to keep like a normal PSI as well. And yeah, I was just super happy with them. They lasted me all day. They were consistent. It was awesome. And so, yeah, I mean, if you guys ever need tires or what, I mean, they were $60 a pop, dude. And so use code sincerely15 at checkout. As far as burners go, like, I used to run Kendas when we were in Japan. I'd run KR20s because
yeah,
they were cheap and good. And they were like,
those are like the go-to.
well, right. And they were like $55 a pop, but here that just doesn't, I don't want that. I don't want to spend 80, and $80 a tire is still cheap, but $60 for some Fies, like I'll take the Fies all day. And that's not me being like sponsored and saying that. That's me being a cheap ass and wanting good tires still. So,
Yeah.
but no,
And
it
as
went,
a self-admitted tire snob, I'm gonna because Tire Streets does have a UK website, which when I discovered that, I was like, yo, it's on. So I gotta get some get some on order soon because the stage it needs some new tires real
dude, you
bad.
need to go slide that before you leave the UK too.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I would kick myself in the ass if I never do. So they have this thing called Run What You Brung or Drift What You Brung here,
Yeah.
and I might just go for like half a day, just like dip my toe in because
Dude,
I still got to sell the car.
I'm telling you, if you have a good morning, you're gonna like send it time after time after. The only reason I left is because I had to pick up pants for my wife, and I was like, "Yo, if I don't leave now, like I'm never gonna leave," because they were like drifting into the night, and I was like, "I got tires, the car's reliable." I'm like, "Let's go!" Like I was fucking hype, dude.
Yeah,
Dude, the
I'm
car
gonna try
did so
those
good.
fives. I'm gonna try those fives.
But anyways, yeah, I mean that's our big announcement, I guess, for this episode before we get into Micah Diaz. Is just about that. I mean, we're super stoked on it. That just got finalized, gosh, last week. But we'd been talking about it, I think, since December or maybe even November. But it was at least a month or two ago.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to get into that. Like, the person we were talking to from Tire Streets, they reached out to us and was like, "Yo, we know you guys like a grassroots kind of show, but we really want to support that." Which I don't know about you, Jared, but that meant a lot to me. Like, people want to see us shine, and they're willing to, help us out and help out our listeners.
Right.
Like that goes a long way. So
Shout out to Austin, Allstone Media. Yeah, that's just cool, man. And that's why I like this community so much. Is like I feel like it's very like ride or die as a community. You know what I mean? Like I've always felt like drifting is just really tight knit and like we look out for one another. And I've just made some really good friends in the community, and so I think that that's like such a cool benefit. And so for him, he was like, "Yeah, listen, I know you guys aren't huge, but it'd be cool to build with you at the ground level." And I was like, "Yeah, like let's do it because 2022 is gonna be hitting hard." And we've already started it with two really cool interviews, so I'm super super stoked to see what the rest of the year brings.
Yeah. So that's sincerely 15 at checkout. Don't forget it, guys. So I want to make sure we, put that out there.
Again,
But
sincerely 50.
I'm trying to bring my my media trained personality, although I'm not media trained. But I listen to a lot of podcasts and that's how they do it. So I'm gonna do that.
Yo, Darius and I were talking about readers for the ads before this, and he made like this whole reader, and he's like, all right, Jared, so this is the part here where you're gonna repeat it after me, and then we'll keep I'm like, yo, you're going legit.
Hey, hey, we pride ourselves on quality at Sincerely Japan. That's what
Honestly,
we're trying to bring, so we're trying to step it up.
Honestly,
If we're representing other people's names, we want to, put some shine on their names too.
Facts.
But, who do we got who's in this interview, Jared? Give us some more background. I know it's Micah Diaz, but give us some
So
some
Micah
background.
Diaz is a pro spec driver here in the States. He drifts an LS E46. I almost called it an E36. But he's a big beamer dude, and I think it's cool with him because he has kind of a different outlook on drifting than you or I. I think you and I have. I mean, you lived in Japan even as a high schooler. I need to let go of this fucking Velcro. I'm sure they're gonna hear it. It's like bad ASMR just to have me like undoing and redoing Velcro.
Hey, that's gonna be on our Patreon.
Oh,
if you guys want to sign up for ASMR with Jared,
just 1 hour of Velcro, dude. Anyways, hold on. What does that sound like? I don't love it. I mean, it kind of
offer.
It
We're
almost
not doing ASMR with Jared.
It almost sounds like bubble wrap when it gets close enough. Anyways, dude, listen, we're not going to talk about ASMR. I saw some weird ASMR yesterday. Okay, we're going to talk about it, dude. I saw fart ASMR yesterday, and I was like, "What the fuck is? Who wants to listen to this?" And I didn't go looking for this, just to make that very clear. Okay, I was on Discord, and somebody was like, "Yo, who the fuck watches this?" And I was like, "Turns out I watch this when you give me the link." You know what I mean? Like, and then I paused and was like, "What am I doing right now?" Anyways,
you have to rethink your life.
I forgot what we were talking about. We went from Velcro.
We're introducing Micah Diaz. I'm sorry, bro.
Jesus,
hey, I just want to personally say I have nothing to do with this. This is all Jared talking about fart ASMR.
Welcome to the show, dude. Man, Micah's such a cool dude. And so he's just a genuinely nice guy. He drives the shit out of his Beamer. The cool thing about his outlook on drifting just as a whole is he's very like American style drifting, as far as LSs and like just big angle. And it's just, he's got a much different outlook. You went to high school in Japan. I'd always been looking at Japan just because I thought it was cool, and I'm kind of a weeb. And so hearing his perspective that's very like Americana based and born is interesting. And then he offers some really, really cool insights on, future tech that's coming out, driving styles, new rules that are coming for FD. I mean, he's a good dude to have that's in the know on things, and he's able to break it down in a way that doesn't just assume that I know everything. You know what I mean? Which I like. I mean, because I don't know everything. I know next to nothing. And so when he's like, yo, there's this new double clutch transmission coming out, DCT, I was like, I don't know what that means, bro. Educate me. You'll hear it later in this episode. I'm not going to tease too much, but yeah, just a genuinely good dude who's doing some really cool things in drifting and now rally. He just bought a WRX too. So
yeah,
too stoked. And then we got more people coming. I know we're doing interview to interview, like back to back. This is not a new format for us. We talked about it when we did the Prism Mike episode, right? We were like, we're going to do one interview every 5 episodes roughly was like kind of the tempo. And Darius and I have been talking about it. We might do interviews more often than that as they come, but I still want this to be just you and me, dude, like I don't want it to be every interview is a special guest just because it's like
hard.
Well, not only is it hard, but it's like I don't want the show format to rely on someone else to make it interesting. That's it.
Yeah. We like to keep them as special treats, and we know you guys are gonna like this one. I listened to it and I really like it. What? I'm not allowed to say special treats.
It's just a weird way to phrase it, dude. We know you guys like special treats, like some Velcro ASMR.
You're trying to flip it on me now, but I'm not the weird one here.
Yeah, you're right.
Man, let's get into this freaking interview before we say something we regret.
All right, guys. As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here, Darius. We'll see y'all
Yeah.
next week with Darius. We might do a full episode. We might do a short. I don't know yet. Let's roll the intro and get to Micah Diaz.
Peace.
Ja, mein Gott, I've never seen a chase run like this in my life. Oh, my God. A textbook head-to-head battle.
Welcome to Sincerely Japan, the drifting podcast.
Anyways, so episode 16, guys, we got Micah Diaz on the show. Super, super stoked. He's just a good dude. He's a crazy driver. Yeah, really excited to have him on overall and just kind of talk because he's got, I think, a different drifting experience than most people do, at least those that are like, there's two camps, I think, to drifting. And tell me if you disagree with this. I think there's the camp that's like Japanese purists, and then there's guys that just want to get sideways for either cheap or practically.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many camps when you really break it down because
Right.
you got your Japanese purist guys and they're just in a whole nother world. And then when you try to compare that to just American drifting in itself is like a totally different animal than Japanese drifting. I think they're
Right.
both amazing in their own ways, but American drifting is just like, how fast can we go? How much horsepower can we make happen? In these tiny, it's just true hot rodding, right? It's the biggest, baddest motor and the lightest car. But yeah, no, there's definitely different camps, and we are not so much like the Japanese out here. We're a little different
Right, for sure.
from the little bit that I know about Japanese drifting, because I don't know too much about. Like, I'm not one of the guys who got involved in drifting because I was a big fan of a Japanese driver from Japan, rather, which is weird because I was actually a really big fan of Dai, but that was when he was in the American circuit already.
Right. And he was popping. What happened to Die? Do you know this? I don't know this.
I don't know. I think it was something because I know he was driving for Reese Millen back in the day. That was
Right.
when he was driving on his own, I think, and then he started driving for Reese, and he was driving his GTO, and I was like, that's the sickest car on the planet, mostly because it was red and
That's a fucking
and white.
deep cut, dude. The Reese Millen GTO. That was right around when
Yeah.
that was like 05, 06 ish. That was right when I came in.
Yeah, so I started
Dude.
watching, not when Reese was driving it, but when Dai was driving it. That's when I started watching drifting and started to fall in love with it. And then, yeah, I just couldn't. But I never was like, yo, who's all the big drivers in Japan? And like, I got to watch all these Japanese videos of these drivers. I think by the time I had gotten into it, there was already a pretty big influence in the States. So I never really looked elsewhere because I just didn't really
Right.
care. I was just like, this is dope. And I didn't even really understand the extent of drifting in Japan. I had seen videos, but it was mostly like RX-7s and 240s, like flying around a corner that's like off cambered and then, dipping a tire and straightening out and then whipping it back into the next corner and blowing off body kits. And it was super gangster, but I didn't think it was as cool as watching, Reese and Dye and Humanet and Faust and all those guys go nuts at Irwindale. Like, I thought that was way cooler. Now looking back, I can understand and appreciate that both of them are their own arts and they're totally different. But dude, I just love American drifting.
Yeah.
I love the hot rodding aspect of it.
That's what I was gonna, right. And you've had Beamers for a long time too. But aside
Yeah.
from like the body and the chassis, there's not a whole lot left that's Beamer about it. What's the appeal for you to have E46s, 7 Series? Like, where does that come from?
That stemmed from once I actually started watching American drifting, then I found this lovely young gentleman named Chelsea Denofa. And he completely influenced I would say not completely, but in a major way, he influenced my choice and decision in chassis and in, to a degree, styling and angle kit and all that stuff.
Right.
Chelsea was just the man. Like, so when I first started getting into drifting, it was sometime in high school. Very hard to pinpoint when. Feels like it's been my whole life. Um, my buddy Daniel had gotten a hold of an E30, and there was these other two brothers. They were able to get some funding monthly because of some medical stuff that their mother went through. So they were building cars like left and right in high school. They had 240s. One has the same Mark 7. It's funny because they're different completely. One has the same Mark 7 he's had since we were in high school, and he's still trying to
Nice.
make it work.
Yeah.
And the other one has been through like 30 different cars.
Yeah.
But they all had like SRs and hatches and turbos and all this stuff. And so my boy Daniel came out, and his uncle gave him an E30. So when we were getting into drifting, I started realizing like this is an inline six rear wheel drive platform. And I was like, this makes way too much sense versus jumping in to a 4-cylinder. And no one
Right.
really had been like actually driving around me just yet. So I didn't really understand like how hard it would be to drive a 4-cylinder NA versus how hard it would be to drive a inline six NA. But I could just see like, oh, I would like to start with, my mindset has always been, let's start with the bigger motor platform, and then we'll move from there. Like it's similar to what race teams do, right? A lot of race teams, they take the best street car and then they turn it into the best race car.
Right.
Essentially just laying, like, it's essentially just a really solid foundation to start with, and then you can build off of that. And so I saw that in the E30 platform, and I got into that. And then the next thing I knew, that I was kind of a Beamer fan at that point, and then I became a Chelsea fan because I had figured out who Chelsea DeNofa was,
Right.
and
And
that was it.
Chelsea was definitely like a fan favorite when he was popping. I mean, he still is popping, but you know,
Oh, yeah.
2014, 2015, when he was like really starting to get into it, everybody was
Yeah.
like, oh, back when everybody thought he was a female driver, and they were like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
like Chelsea because she's, you know, she's killing.
Yeah, Chelsea, don't call me a girl DeNofa.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big influence in my career, and he's someone I actually had finally at some point gotten a hold of, and I do text him periodically about just, like, hey, what do you think about this? Or, like, congratulations on your 1 and 2 finish. Props on, coming in around what Irwindale. Hey, dude, hope you do well.
Right.
Just little things like that. We've never really developed like a friendship. Like, we don't have like a relationship, but he's always been somebody that like I admired since before I even started really drifting myself.
Yeah.
And then him being someone who could just help me, or who has helped me, a lot, has been really cool. He's helped me with like suspension and obviously all the BC stuff. But Chelsea's probably my biggest influence in drifting.
I think you can see that too, because when Chelsea first came on, I mean, still, he was always about big style. You know what I mean? Like super aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you guys kind of share a very similar. Do you think that's where that comes from? Is like watching what he's doing and being like, oh, he's, you know, chucking huge shit. I need to be doing the same thing.
I mean, the first like reverse entries I was ever seeing was DeNofa with the SLR kit, which
Right.
immediately pushed me into SLR. I was like, you could do that in a car? Yup, I want that. But no, I take a lot of inspiration from him, which is kind of weird to say now, because now it's like I text a guy and I see him at the track and say what's up and stuff. But like, he's not necessarily, I wouldn't call him a peer because he's obviously still way above me. But it's interesting thinking about where it started. I haven't reflected in a long time. So thinking about where I started and who influenced me to now who I get to talk to and hang out with and ask some tech tips from. But he's very inspirational in my car setup, my driving style, and then also just one of the big things is just trying to go viral. So it's like, hey, if you want to go viral and you want to break the internet, which essentially turns into sponsorships, or which essentially turns into eyes, which equates potential sales to sponsorships, which
Right.
turns into money into your pocket so that you can continue to go, throw some crazy driving. Yeah, no, I just always was like, I gotta go as hard as I can every time I hit the track, because that otherwise, what's the point about coming out here and driving? And I think it's potentially been a stunt in my growth driving wise, but not as far as exposure. It's accelerated exposure, but because I'm just like, no nonsense, just huck it into the first corner and see what happens. That's caught me a couple times and slowed me down. And then obviously just like not paying attention to what the progress is. I forgot the first question. I do this a lot.
Good.
Dude.
Hey, it's never a bad thing to have too much to work with, you know? So
Yeah.
But no, so you think it's stunted growth just because it's like you've got yourself in situations where your car's down, you know, longer than it needs to be?
Not necessarily down. More so like just not paying attention to what I'm doing, right? Because if you want to mark progress, then you need to be essentially what you need to be doing is you need to be having your course markers. Like for instance, like when we go to Grange, everybody wants to know, hey, what's the initiation point? Because it's such a gnarly first turn. And I tell them like, yo, you got to pick like a marker on the course, pick something that's concrete, that's in positions not being moved, and go as fast as your car will go into the first corner, and then initiate at that marker. And then if you're going too deep, initiate just before it. And then if you're too shallow, then find that happy medium spot in between. And essentially that's just like tracking what is going to work at what tracks, and you kind of get to learn more about your car and what it'll do. And so like when you're just going out for like the Huck Fest, you're not really paying attention to any of that stuff. You're just, how fast will it go? And you just freaking throw it and say a prayer and see how it goes.
Right.
And that I think has slowed me down in my progression of driving, just because you're just not paying attention. They're just like, yeah, let's just see what it does, and hopefully we can land a sick clip out of this or something.
Right. I got you.
Usually it works, but not being like actually focused or having any, which is not really traditional, but traditional training, because that's still just a very new idea to get coached in drifting. But because usually you just go to the track and your homie says like, yeah, I do this, and so you try it, and then you find out if it works or it doesn't, and then you're on your own to a degree. Yeah. Now there's schools out there, shout out East Coast Drift School, but now you can go to somebody who is a very good driver. Some of the pros are even out there, and you can sign up and take courses and learn from them. Chelsea as well. But yeah, no, I think that slowed me down just because I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm just like, let's just get the sickest clip we can get. Right. And not even for growth. I actually enjoy making a clip that goes viral.
Oh, like, of course, right.
It's satisfying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can't even, like, especially in your level, like we get like 10,000 views and I'm like, oh shit, like 10 grand. But then if you're getting, hundreds of thousands or whatever, like that's, especially in the drifting community too, because I feel like it's such a smaller niche, it's obviously bigger than it's ever been before, but, yeah, it's like you just get that instant rush and like you can't keep your eyes off your phone. You're like, oh, okay, what are we at now?
Yeah. And then it turns into like just chasing the next thing. What is it? What is it? And it's like, I don't mean to get crazy off topic, but it's essentially like me and my wife talk about it all the time, which we were talking about starting a podcast just because we always have really, I feel really interesting conversations between her and I, but yeah, essentially what happens to like celebrities and why they get messed up in the head and die from drugs and stuff is because they end up getting that high from the concert stage, and then there's just an empty void after, and they're just trying to fulfill it every time. Right. I kind of feel like I get like that sometimes when it comes to trying to make some sick video or get a crazy clip or something. I'm not going to run to drugs. Yeah. A lot of the celebrities do that. They try to fill that void with something, and then before you know it, they're, OD'd on the floor or something.
Right. And that's such a good point too. It's like, how many people are we going to have like that with TikTok? You know what I mean? It's like people that aren't even like in the big public eye, but they have, 500,000 followers on TikTok. Like, I don't know. It's just such a weird. It's such a weird dynamic that we live in now, where you can go viral off like one video and have hundreds of thousands of people pour in, and then like your engagement just goes like way, way down. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
it's nuts. The stuff that people are getting famous for. Like you got the hands guy, and then I don't even know, dude. You got people doing silly TikToks. It's cool. It's cool, but it's just like, man, you got to have some type of substance. I got a buddy, and he's dope. I love him to death. But he's got a TikTok, and he's grown like substantially. He's very disciplined with it. He does his content and all that stuff. But it's crazy to me, like even in the drifting world, you can have such a big following, but if that platform gets taken away, if TikTok gets taken away, if Instagram gets taken away, if YouTube gets taken away, like what have you done to get into the public eye and have a bigger following than just a bunch of drift kids or random people on a platform?
right.
Those Instagram models. Somebody had posted something when Instagram went down for a day. Somebody posted a meme, and it was like, it was for these hoochies, and it was like, it said something along the lines of like, Instagram goes down, poof, you're not a model anymore.
Yeah.
I was just like, damn, I got to make sure I'm still a driver if Instagram dies,
Right.
because that's my main outlet. I feel that I have created a name for myself outside of that platform now.
Right.
But yeah, I just don't. I want to have substance in my content to where people, similar to like a Travis Pastrana, like he's the GOAT, right? I'll never hit that because I don't have the same size balls as him at all, nowhere near. But someone like that guy, like, yeah, he got mad popular off of MTV, but it was just like, yeah, everyone knows who he is though. Like there's very few people on the planet who don't know who Travis Pastrana is.
Right. Just a household name. And I guess like while we were talking about this, dude, let's backtrack a little bit. So for people that don't know who you are, no, not at all. Don't apologize. For people that don't know who you are, like explain to us, like, you know, what you do, like what is your brand, right? Like what's your image? Like what are you about? And kind of what's your intent with drifting? Just big picture.
Oh man, it's a loaded question. So who am I? Is that what you said? Was that the first part of the
Basically,
question?
just like what's your lane of drifting? You know what I mean? Like because you're very content heavy, and so I probably should have prefaced this interview with explaining like, you know, who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
But we're kind of like we keep teetering on it regarding obviously the stuff that you create. But for somebody listening that doesn't know, what's like your main goal as far as content goes, and what kind of stuff are you trying to push out?
I just want to put out the sickest driving possible. Like that's my whole goal. My whole goal is like the last time we were at Slay Day. My goal was like, yo, get the sickest clip on initiation. Turns out the sickest clip of that day is me crashing on initiation because I had a brake failure. But we still got a clip, right? It's a very Nightcrawler of me. If you've ever seen Jake Gyllenhaal Nightcrawler film,
Dude,
it's like, yeah, even if
cut.
it's bad, we gotta put it out there.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that people want. It gets the people going. But yeah, my goal with drifting, I don't know. It's just I don't really know. I'm a Christian, and it's difficult being a Christian when you have a lot of public eyes on you because you make mistakes and you say things you shouldn't say because you're still a human. There's still that side of you that's the flesh, if you will,
Right.
which is Christianese talk for you're just a man who's representing a perfect God. So it's just this interesting battle when being in the public eyes. But you know, I've always been faithful to whatever God wants me to do, and so with drifting, I have only taken steps to continue in drifting because I feel like the doors continue to be open for me. So I just keep moving forward. So I don't know exactly what the goal is. Obviously, the goal is like share the gospel. That's like the basic goal. I think that's the mission of every Christian. But God has given me this ability to drive, and He's given me opportunities to work with big companies and get on major platforms and grow this big my own platform,
Right.
and so I don't know where it stops or where it goes. I'm just along for the ride, and uh, I think it's an interesting one. If anybody out there is a Christian, it's kind of just this interesting walk of anybody you look at in the Bible. Like when you look at, say, Abraham and Isaac, they just kind of say, yeah, like, all right, here I am, send me. And then next thing you know, you're doing something crazy, you're out here, dude, it just gets rowdy. Like you're just following God's plan for your life, and who knows where it goes. Like I have no clue. I
Yeah.
have no clue where it's going, but I'm down.
Hell yeah.
I'm enjoying it so far. I'm sure at some point I'll be, tested and pressured and all that stuff, which I feel like I have been before. But as long as God continues to provide, I'll keep driving.
Yeah.
I have zero desire to stop. So
Right.
if the tires keep coming and the fuel keeps coming and the backing keeps coming and the financial backing keeps coming, I'll keep pushing. Like I continue to tell God every time I face something that's like, I don't know how we'll make it happen. Because for myself, for those of you who don't know, I have my own business, Hold Fast, and we sell steering wheels and some merch and stuff like that. Um, and it has been sufficient to cover the bills for drifting. I've been very blessed to be in a position where I have a lot of support from my in-laws and from my own mom and all that stuff. So uh, essentially, what I'm saying is that like sometimes that doesn't provide all the way for driving. So I just get pretty much back into like the mindset of prayer, and I'm like, Lord,
Yeah.
I thought this was from you. What are we doing? And then next thing you know, GT Radio's like, hey, bro, like we don't usually do this for the prospect guys, but we got you. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and it's just like, oh, thank the Lord, because I didn't know what I was gonna do. There's a couple of us out there. I mean, there's a lot of undercover Christians out there too, because like I said, it's a very difficult spot to be in, especially with today's like, you know, you know, uh, political climates and society's climates, and it's not a very popular thing to be a Christian who's, pro gun and pro life and all these other things, and uh, which by the way, those aren't from my word. That's from the Bible. So if people who have a problem with that, you have a problem with God, not me. But it's just a very interesting public eye to be in because again, you're a imperfect human who follows a perfect God who is expected to be perfect. And it's like, man, if I was perfect, I'd be God, and I'm clearly not God. Uh, but yeah, there's a lot of Christians in drifting. I don't want to put anybody on blast, but I feel like Dmitry Brinsky's pretty open about it. 2-time back-to-back champion, heavy, solid Christian guy. His family's amazing. His church is amazing. They're all great people. They've blessed us even. Um, but yeah, we're out here. There's a
Yeah.
lot of us. A lot of us are quiet because it's difficult.
Right. And speaking of like, making moves and making this a sustainable venture for you,
Yeah.
what was the intent behind starting Hold Fast for you?
So before it was Hold Fast, it was Try Hard, which is funny because all this goes back to God. Sorry if I get preachy. Uh, I started Try Hard, and it was a play on words, obviously, because Try Hard was a negative thing, and I
Right.
wanted to try and make it a positive thing.
Yeah.
Which in hindsight was like, yeah, I guess whatever, and seems silly now. But I had started Try Hard, and I was working at a door company at the time. My boy Frankie was with me. He's still with me. He's my spotter now, spotter and fabricator and all that stuff. But I had I had been working with Frankie, and I was like, yo, we gotta like make another income because this isn't enough to like build cars and stuff. And so I saw like a lot of what Grip Royal was doing, and then I had a buddy named Jordan from Driftwood, and he helped me out a lot getting my business started. So I started selling steering wheels. And then in 2014, the intent of starting it was to create capital in order to build race cars to finish my car.
Right.
Just because I had tickets, I had all kinds of dumb stuff going on at that time, and I had to get more money, and so I would literally buy a batch of wheels, sell a batch of wheels, buy some parts for my car, and then I would have to save up again to buy another batch of wheels, which is not good business if you've ever watched Shark Tank. Uh, super terrible businessman at the time. Still pretty bad. But yeah, so fast forward from that, which is like 2012, 2013, went to school, all that stuff. My dad um, had been sick since I was in like middle school. He had diabetes, and so he had been battling that, and then he had gotten holes in his feet from working nonstop,
Jeez.
and then he developed all kinds of infections and issues with his feet. He got like a toe amputated, and then it was like a whole thing. Diabetics don't heal very well when it comes to injuries, especially ones that affect like an open wound. Open wounds don't heal
Right.
fast. They take a long time, and if you don't sit down and let it happen, let the process happen, or you can't financially, then it's just an unfortunate situation that you're in, and it's just a part of the way that the world works, which is crappy. But he continued to work, and his issue got worse and worse, and then in 2014 he developed pneumonia and a couple of other things that he just his body and his immune system just couldn't handle. So they wanted to put him on a breathing machine, and he had already been stating to us his whole life that if I ever have to be on a machine, to just pull the plug. Like, I don't want to live like that. And so he's a Marine, so he's very hard headed. Um, and in 2014, he decided, when they told him that he had to be on a breathing machine throughout the night to sleep well, and to help his lungs from the contraction of pneumonia, he said he was done. So he stopped dialysis, he stopped the breathing machines, everything, and he just kind of hung out in the hospital for the last 10 days. He ended up passing away in 2014, the 18th of December. And yeah, through that moment in my life, I think I was at 18 in 2010, so whatever, you can do the math.
Right.
I was still very young to not have my father in my life, my dad. And so when I was going through that, like I said, I'm a Christian, so I started to question everything I believed in. Well, on the 18th, or I forgot the date that's on my card, but I think it was the 16th or something. My dad had my mom write us Christmas cards, because this is December. So on the 25th, we would have a Christmas card from our dad who had just, passed away on the 18th. So 16 writes a card, 18 dies, 25th we get to open our Christmas cards, and me and my dad had a interesting relationship. It's difficult when you raise your kids to not be doormats, and then we get to, I would call it the punk ass phase, where you want to fight and argue with your dad.
Yeah.
And then you're not a doormat because he told you not to be. So you butt heads with him a lot. And then, his card essentially, I actually just read it the other night because I started missing him. But the card essentially, it said, try to keep it together. It says pretty much like, sorry things didn't always work out the way they should have, but I'm proud of you. And at the end it says, stay the course, which essentially, stay the course translates, what that means is that's biblical. And that's from a lot of the apostles are essentially authors. Epistles are essentially the books they wrote. So apostles who wrote epistles would usually say this at the end, something along the lines of like, stay the course. And what it meant was continue following God, continue on this path toward, your best attempt at righteousness and all that stuff. And so stay the course also translates into hold fast. Hold fast was a sailor term that was used back in those times, even biblical times. It's all over the Bible. There's a verse in Hebrews that we have that's like our main influence for it. But yeah, that's where hold fast came from. I was just questioning my beliefs. Like, do I believe in God? Do I really? Like, that was, I think, a big moment in my life when I believe my faith had already been my own. And what that means is essentially like, parents usually tell you, go to church, do this, do that.
Right.
So you're living out your parents' faith. You're living out your parents' desires for you, and you don't really have. Sorry, I still feel like I have crap in my eyes. It's still fairly early. you essentially are living out what your parents' desires are for you, and haven't built your own relationship with God, and you haven't, decided to go to church for yourself because you understand the significance behind the fellowship and the commitment to Christ. But that was a big moment. I had already had my own faith prior to that, so then I had come into the questioning phase of my faith. Right. Most Christians I know, they go through youth group and all this stuff and all these ministries, and then they go into college, and then college is their questioning period in their life where they question what they believe. Mine was my dad dying, which I felt was a little bit, I don't know if it was easier or harder or on the same par as like going to a college, because college, I feel like you just have professors telling you what you need to think. This one I had to wrestle with by myself, but it was
Right.
also like at the cost of losing my dad. So wrestled through it and figured out, like, yeah, I do believe there's God. I do believe there's a heaven. And I didn't want to believe that there was a heaven out of the comfort of like, yeah, that's where my dad's at. We're good. I wanted to actually sit down and like look at myself in the mirror and go, hey, do you actually believe this? Do you
Right.
really believe that there is a heaven? Do you believe that God did what he did on the cross? And do you believe that, Jesus saves? And do you think that, we're set apart because of our acceptance in Christ? And I just came to the conclusion that, yeah, like God's been so faithful in my life so often that I'm just like, there's no way he's not real. I've met him. I've heard him. I've seen him in person. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I have such a deep connection with the Lord, and it's good because my parents laid that foundation, and then I was able to, like, that was like, like I said, I had my own faith, and then I wrestled with God at that point in my life, and then now I'm like, all right, you're in charge, send it, whatever you want to do. I don't remember what the original question was. Like I said,
It was
hold fast.
Hold fast.
So that's where hold fast comes from. That's where it was birthed out of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it came from. It came from that, and then ever since I got married, my wife and I, we would go to work, we'd come home, and we'd sit on the couch and we'd paint steering wheels while we would watch The Office or we'd watch Parks and Rec or whatever.
No
We'd
way.
hand paint
Like
our
as a
logos.
hobby or as part of Holdfast?
No, as part of Holdfast. Like that's what we did because we didn't understand. I didn't understand laser engraving just yet. I didn't understand that somebody can do what I was doing in 4 hours in like 10 minutes.
Right.
And so there's a couple of steering wheels still floating out there that are hand painted by me and Hannah.
Nice.
But ever since I got married, she took the company to like a whole nother level. We got a website. There's no more DM PayPal transactions happening.
Right.
Like, I was like, man, like this thing, you mean there's a shipping label that gets printed on? I gotta fill it out. So it's been really cool,
What
my
was
wife has helped a lot.
What was the appeal for steering wheels specifically?
The ease.
Yeah.
The ease of being able to order something from overseas in bulk, mostly because nobody does it here. Let me just preface that because I'm very interested in American jobs, but no one really makes steering wheels here in the States. And if you find somebody who does, please tell me. But I couldn't find anybody here. But it was just really easy. It was easy to go and get a steering wheel, pick out like a template, design it the way that you wanted, throw your logo on it, and sell it for a good profit.
Yeah.
It was just a quick, easy buck that didn't, because at the time also I was working my own job. So I was working my 8 hours, 10 hours a day, whatever it was, depending on what the workload was. And then coming home and trying to run a business again after that. So it was like, man.
Right.
And then I had started it and it just started working. And then before I knew it, I was just like, yeah, let's not stop this. This is good. We got something here. So we just continue going. It's been able to replace my income from my full-time job that I was working. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's dope. I don't want to stop.
Just style preference, 3-spoke or 2-spoke?
Oh man, it depends. Depends on what we're doing. Style preference, 2-spoke. This wheel right here. That's my favorite wheel we have, our Casino, which has been very difficult to get a hold of lately, and it's very annoying because everybody wants it. I have a wait list of like 200 people.
Jeez.
As soon as that wheel comes in stock, it's gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my favorite wheel. That's inspo from Osbo. That's a Frederick Osbo inspiration. Then putting it in my race car, I'm like, yeah, I know why this is desired. It's a little deeper. But it's obviously it's a two-spoke design. So the idea is that you have a harness on and you're strapped into your chassis. I have a two-spoke wheel in my Ford F-250, not a holdfast, the actual Ford steering wheel, and it flexes. So the big concern with the two-spoke is like, yeah, this isn't the sturdiest wheel because it's only a two-spoke. So the idea behind it is it's a competition wheel. You're strapped into your car. You're not relying on the steering wheel to hold you in your seat like you do in your stock BMW or anything like that. But you just get such a big visual picture of your dash. So if you have a digital dash behind it, you can see everything. On the bottom, you can see all of your pedals and everything underneath the steering
interesting.
wheel.
Yeah.
So it's a big visual thing for me. I can see everything.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah, I really like it. Which you don't need to see your feet, but if an issue happens or something like you lose your brakes, you can see that there's fluid flying everywhere by your feet without having to kind of like dip your head or look around. It's just very quick little dip down. Yep, something's wrong. Like, we're gonna die. Yeah, no, I like two spoke all day.
Right on.
3-spoke's gonna go in the rally car because it's the sturdy boy. But yeah.
Now, I do want to backtrack a little bit. So,
Yeah.
When you got married, what was it like for you just to expand your world of motorsports? You know what I mean? Like, because obviously you said that you got married, she came in and helped you with Holdfast.
Yeah.
And so when you were like, was she already into cars?
Oh no, we are completely different creatures. I did not want a girl who's into cars. That's kind of, it's not, this is kind of maybe too much information, but it's kind of a turnoff for me. The idea of working on somebody else's car bugs me. So I didn't want a car girl. But no, she wasn't really into cars, but she was into me, which helped. And so she just wanted to see me succeed, and she's backbone. She's backbone of this whole operation. I don't do what I do, and I don't get to do what I do without her. Like it's arguable that she plays a bigger role than me in my career.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's heavy. She's she's heavy. Shouldn't say that. She's a very big part of my career. I think she's still sleeping. Hopefully she didn't hear that.
I'll just clip it and send it to her, dude. You're good.
Yeah. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
It's gonna be like, so hey, how did your wife help? She's heavy.
Yeah. My wife, man, she's fat. No, she's a very big influence and part of why I am where I am, for sure.
And then talking about your team, right? So we're talking about Frankie earlier.
Yeah, my boy.
What does it take for you to go from like a grassroots, building my own thing, to being able to find people that are going to be reliable, that'll help you throughout like a full season of pro driving?
Oh man, it's tough. Well, one of the big things that we do, and I'll say this because I say it proudly, and I think that every crew should do this, and I know everybody's in a different financial situation than I am, but we pay our guys. We pay our guys well. I'll throw it out there. Our guys will make up to $1,200 in the weekend rolling with us, down to $750 depending on, and we do those flat rates just because we don't know. Like, yeah, we can have a good day where everything on the car works perfect, nothing goes wrong. We're back at our hotels by lunchtime, everybody's chilling. Or we have days where it's like, hey, we're pulling the head off the motor in the rain and it's cold. I had one where Anthony is not a big fan of the story, but we had some issues with the car, and we were in Seattle, and as you know, Seattle is always raining and all that stuff, and there's giant puddles, and he needed to get to us before a 5-minute timeout, and he had to run through these huge, like probably 6-7 inch deep puddles where like you can't just like tiptoe across it and make it through if you run fast enough.
Yeah,
like Jesus
maybe in
walking
platforms.
on water. Yeah, no, he was like foot into the water, foot into the water, foot into the water, and it's all just super soggy wet grass, and he was pissed.
Yeah.
I was like, just get over here, and he's just like, there's puddles in the way, and I was like, I'll buy you shoes.
That's
My boys
expensive.
are awesome. Yeah, no, Anthony was great. He's like, I look at him like my little brother. Like, I want to see him do amazing things. And I say little brother because he's a little smaller than me and he's a couple years younger than me. But he's a very talented kid. I say kid. I don't know why I'm saying kid. Anthony is an amazing man. But Frankie, I guess kind of the way the crew developed is Frankie was at my very first competition. I met him through my brother. So the very first comp I ever did, Frankie was with me. And then fast forward, I go to UTI and I wanted to buy a cell phone off of a kid in my class. And this guy was sitting behind me, and I was like, I told the guy who I wanted to buy a cell phone, I'm like, I just got to sell these Beamer wheels. And when I sell these Beamer wheels, I'll buy your cell phone. And then this dude who's sitting right behind me leans over, and it's Hugo. And he's like, hey, man. He's like, what kind of wheels you selling? I'll buy those wheels off you. And then ever since then, Hugo's like one of my best friends. That's where I met Hugo, who's my crew chief.
Yeah.
And then Anthony is Frankie's little brother. So he just naturally came into the whole thing because of Frankie. But those have been my solid three who have backed me since the get-go. From when we didn't have Hugo was at my first Pro-Am event, Frankie wasn't. And then the crew just developed. We have a couple of other dudes, Dario and Clint, and they come in and out of the team depending on like the needs of the team, but they're good friends of mine too. But Hugo, Frankie, and Anthony are like my brothers, and that stems from like not just some like because I get a lot of DMs. I'm like, hey bro, how can I join your team? How can I get involved and all that stuff? And I'm like, the team's full. Like, I take care of my guys. They're family to me. And like I trust them. They help me build my car. They know my car up and down. They know it as good as me, if not better than me.
Right.
So it's just like I said, it's very difficult to explain a lot of the success moments in my career without somehow including God in it. But yeah, I just feel like the Lord put Hugo in my life for a specific reason. And then Franklin as well. Like my brother was friends with this dummy. I don't like him. My brother was friends with this dummy, and the dummy was friends with Franklin. And they came to the house to buy something off my brother. And then I met Frankie, and I had my E30 at the time. And then Frankie was like, yo, is that your car? And I was like, yeah, you want to go on a date? And he was like, yeah. And then ever since then, we've been really good friends. So I met him through, there's an extension there. But yeah, it's just, I don't know how to build a team because I don't feel like I built my team. I feel like I was given a team.
Right.
But having people who are faithful and loyal, that's to go with saying like you're faithful and loyal to them as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. What did it look like for you? I mean, so tell me a little bit about, what were the early days for you of drifting? What kind of car were you in? What kind of events were you doing? What did that look like?
Yeah, that was oh man, that was E36. The first one was stock E36 on cut springs or stock springs. I don't remember. My mom at the time, I went to the track, and I was low on gas. I don't know why I didn't get gas before I got there, but I had to go to the driver's meeting, so my mom drove my car to the gas station, filled it up for me.
Nice.
And brought it back to the track. She's like, you're good. Send it. And then, just stock motor, stock suspension, no angle kit. And then at some point we did E46 arms that don't really do too much beside add clearance. And then it turned into a 5.0 Mustang Fox body motor in it, an old 3.0, whatever it is, 302, I think is what that motor is. I can't remember. It's been so long. We had a 302 in it at one point, and then that's when we went to Pro-Am. And we put a rear mount radiator in it. And then I realized, I brought a knife to a gunfight coming to Pro-Am because essentially, what it looks like in Pro-Am is that, and it pissed me off when I heard this, but Taka told me the fastest car in the class sets the bar. And it's up to you to build a car that's that fast or go home.
Right.
So yeah, I realized I brought a knife to a gunfight, which doesn't work out well, unless you're Jason Bourne. And then, which I'm not. And then, yeah, it was just like overheating, blowing motors. My first comp, I blew my motor. My mom asked me if it was worth it, and I told her, yup. And then my first comp at Pro-Am was overheating my 302 and catching on fire on the line because I had a fuel rail that went bad. Or I didn't mount it right. I scratched that. I did not mount that right, and so it popped and fuel got all over the motor. That caught on fire. That was cool. It was just cut springs and skid plates and just junk builds.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have real suspension in my car for until the second year of Pro-Am. I did one round, realized I wasn't ready. I came back the following year on cut springs. And just a bottomed out rear suspension on my 36. And you can see videos of my car just like bouncing through the track, not smooth at all. And then finally coming in in 2019 with a solid teammate and a very, very solid car, and playing the teammate game, which is really cool because the strategy is a little different than just being a free bird.
Mm-hmm.
But doing that and then finally getting a championship. So I competed 4 years and then I got a championship. But early drifting it's very, very grassroots. I would say it's below grassroots. It's 6 feet under. It was terrible. Just crappy builds and just like scratching by to make it happen.
Right.
It was not pretty.
Did you teach yourself how to do everything mechanically, or did you have somebody that kind of showed you, because it sounds like your builds were, as far as like the mechanics of it go, doing rear mount radiators and stuff like that. Like that's all pretty race car centric. That's not just, I'm going to slap this in the car and go.
That was us watching other people and going, oh, I got to do that. That's going to work better. Not understanding why it works better, not understanding how to even make it work, learning a lot, and then realizing like, hey, if anybody wants to do a rear mount radiator, I got you. I know all the issues with it. I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
But we had growing up, I had a buddy I still have him. He's my best man at my wedding. His name's Brad. My dad, like I said, my dad was pretty ill and he was working a lot. He's a truck driver, so I didn't have too much time with him when he was in town. But he wasn't really interested at that point in going in the garage and messing with stuff. And we didn't really have a garage to work in. We had a garage, but it was full of crap. And so Brad's dad, Troy, was one who taught us a lot about doing things right the first time because it's going to bite you in the butt later.
Right.
Which I didn't learn that lesson for a very long time, even after I heard it.
That's like maturing in the garage, I think, is learning to like just do shit the right way, spend the $3 on a clamp, you know what I mean? Just whatever.
Dude. And it'll change your life once you actually like get it done. Colt, enough, off. Yeah, Troy taught me a lot about how to work on stuff we had go-karts and pocket bikes and go-peds and mopeds and dirt bikes, and we had everything. And he was the guy in my life that was essentially like my garage dad. He taught me a lot of the basics on how to even hold a tool and how to use it. And I didn't realize people didn't know how to hold ratchets until I went to UTI and I saw a guy and I was like, yo, why are you holding it like that? And, yeah, he taught us a bunch of stuff. And then obviously I went to school at UTI, and then after that, it had been like, well, let's just figure out how to do this stuff on our own. And if we, do our best to have integrity in our builds and clean our tools and put them away and not lose stuff, like we could probably get pretty far in this. And so
right.
We learned, I had to learn discipline really fast, which took me forever to learn. I could have learned it way faster if I had just stopped being so damn stubborn. But yeah, no, it worked out. I mean, I think we're doing all right now.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so going to UTI, I mean, what's the extent of stuff that you do in house, and like what's something where you're like, okay, I just, there's somebody that's going to do this better than me, so I'm going to pass this work off to somebody else. Like, is there a line for that?
Everything. Yeah. No, if I find somebody who's willing to help me, who's better at it than me, I am like, you can do it. I am totally fine with you doing it. our pro car is very much so like that. Like I did all the stripping work. I stripped everything down. I pulled all the wiring out. I got the chassis prepped. I did a lot of the cutting of things taking apart. I did. Um, the motor we're partnered with CBM, so CBM uh blueprinted the motor. I was there assembling it with the guys so that I was involved in the process just in case we had something happen at the track. So I helped build my motor, but they knew why and they knew what parts to put in it to make it do certain things. I just knew how those parts went together to make it work, and I understood torque specs and all that stuff.
Right.
So very basic caveman knowledge in my head um, as far as how to build an LS. Um, but yeah, no, the transmission company, we with G-Force South, we haven't had to touch our transmission. With CBM, they are willing to look into our motor if anything goes wrong when we've only had one thing major happen with it. The fab work is Frankie and Anthony. They run Proper Fab Works, my two boys on the team. Um, and then the wiring and tuning is Proper Tuning OG. Proper Tuning, my boy Josh, he did all the wiring and the tuning on the car. So I've gotten to a point where I don't know if it's a combination of laziness or humility or what it is, but if I find somebody who's willing to do it and I know can do it better than me, I allow them to.
Right.
Like, I'm not getting in your way, dude, because I need this thing to be the best car possible. And if I'm going to be prideful or I'm going to be stubborn, like, I will just hold myself back big time.
Yeah.
So I just allow people, like there's a line, and it's when somebody says, "Hey, I'll do it," and I look at their work and I go, "Yeah, you'll do it."
Yeah, looking at work beforehand, like that's the key. That's the key step in all of this.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, you definitely don't want people who don't know what they're doing touching your car.
Right.
And that's a big problem with like people DMing too. Like, can I join your team? I'm like, dude, I see you like, like, yeah, you make Instagram photos or something. I don't know how to make people seem like they can't do the job, but there's a lot of people out there who don't look like they can do the job, and it's like, I can't just have you jump on my team, because if you don't understand what you're doing and you do something wrong, or you don't you cut a corner when you're bolt checking the car or whatever, like, we can lose a whole race because somebody cut a corner.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's happened, and it wasn't somebody cutting a corner. It was more so us not understanding. Like, hey, we need to bolt check the entire car. We go through first practice, car goes on jacks. Then we go through second practice, car goes on jacks. And then we go into qualifying, and then if we have time in between qualifying and comp, car goes on jacks. Like, we had to put that in place because I had qualified first multiple times and had something silly break because we didn't do our due diligence and look it over. So, yeah, it's hard to just add people to your team when you're spending so much money. One, again, I pay my guys too. We spend a lot of money to be there because we get funding, but we don't have all of the funding that people, I think we have. And so it's very hard to put that in the hands of someone who's random, who you haven't, had on your team or didn't help you build the car. So there's guys out there who are good enough, 100%. There's guys who are good enough to just hop on your team and they can tear your whole car apart, put it all back together and go, yeah, everything looks good.
Mm-hmm.
But they're far and few, and they're outside of my budget. So
right.
They usually don't DM you.
Yeah. Yeah, typically.
No diss to people who reach out in DMs.
Right. Now, totally off topic question. If you're drifting, did you ever listen to music when you started drifting? Like, there's two types of drivers, I think, for sure. There's like no music, and then there's like music blasting, but there's no in between.
I've been waiting for this moment my entire life to tell this story. Have you ever seen the movie Grind?
Oh, is that the...
You better know it, dude.
Grind, is that the rollerblading movie?
Oh my God, that's Brink. No.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen Grind. Yeah, I'm thinking of Brink 100%. Dude, that movie was so good.
Dude,
Pumpin' Suds? Anyways.
Oh, good God.
That's the sponsorship you need, dude. Find a dog groomer.
Yeah, that's exactly. You know it. No, Grind was a movie. Grind was a movie about 4 skateboarding homies who were going on the road chasing this dude named Jimmy Wilson, who was a pro, trying to get on into the pro circuit to getting into the professional realm of skateboarding. They wanted to be pros, and so they felt the best way to do this was chase down the pros and follow them on tour, and then at some point have an opportunity to skate in front of them,
right?
And get them to go, damn, that guy's talented, and pull him on the team. Well, at the end of the movie, when he finally, I won't spoil it, but when something cool happens, POD comes on, and it's the Boom song.
Yeah.
The boom, here comes the boom, ready or not. So, I'll take your best shot type of lyric is what it said
right
at one point. But when we would go drifting back in the day, I would bump that song before I started driving because I'm like, I'm gonna wreck all these fools.
POD's the move.
POD was the move. POD boom, dude. I'll tell you what, that gets me hyped.
That's a throwback, dude.
Yeah, that was my jam, dude. I would bump that in my headset before I'm driving, and it's funny too because I would get so into it, and we're at like a warehouse parking lot, and we're not competing, we're not doing anything. I'm just like sitting in my car, like, yeah, I'm about to make it happen. It's like, what are you gonna make happen, dude? You're gonna learn how to slide without any markers or any proximity to anything?
Right.
Like you're just sliding a car. Relax, buddy. But I was in the zone, dude. I was in the zone. It's Boom. It's Boom by POD. That's my jam.
Hell yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, been waiting for this moment my whole life.
Hell yeah. Well, see, we got it out there now, so now people know.
There it is.
Now people
the world
know.
Knows.
If you want to get like Micah Diaz, you just got to put on some POD before you drift.
Dude, I'll tell you what. But just listen to the song. I challenge you. Listen to the song.
It's a banger.
It'll get you in the zone.
It's
dude.
a low key banger. Yeah.
It's a banger, dude. It's as the kids would say, a bop.
It is a bop.
It is a bop.
Back to car stuff.
Yeah. POD boys. Shout out.
So, I mean, not only did you had an E30, E30,
Yeah.
E36, E46.
Yes.
I don't know what the chassis code is, but you got that 7 Series boat.
E38, yeah.
So what's the appeal for you for Beamers specifically? Because those I'm sure are not V8 swapped or do those still have the Beamer power plants?
All the cars I've had in my life, only the E30 stayed with the inline 6, and then the 7 Series, it's the 740 IL.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the long body. It's got like 6 or 7 inches longer in the back door. Yeah, I love that car. It's a total pile of junk, but I just keep it on life support.
Yeah,
pouring oil into it because I just love it so much. But there's not really, I don't know. Like, I'm not one of those guys who's like, I would like to think I'm not one of those guys who's like, yeah, I only drive Beamers. But I've just always liked them. And then recently got a hold of a Subaru, and I started jacking up the Subaru, and it was like twisting. And I was like, oh my God, this car's built like junk. And I think it stems from like, well, all I've worked on is like the ultimate driving machine from Germany.
Right.
And now I'm jumping into like this Japanese car, and I'm like, this thing's flimsy, dude, straight soda can. I don't know. I've always just liked them, and they've always been affordable. That's the thing too. Is like people always like, oh, it's a Beamer, and then it looks all high class, especially when you get a black one and all that. But it's like, no, my 7 Series was $1,500, dude.
Yeah.
My E30 was $1,100. That was a really good time in life when I should have bought a lot more of those cars because now they're like $10,000. But my E30 was $1,100. My 36 I traded for a 1969 2002 BMW, which was one of my favorite cars I've ever owned. And that car I only paid like $1,200 for, I think.
Sheesh. Yeah, those are classics too. I mean, they're getting harder and harder to come by now.
Yeah, another car I wish I would have never gotten rid of. I wish I could have
Right.
kept all the cars I've ever had because they would be gangster cars right now. Especially with like my connections now. And
It's like one of those knowing what you know now type things, right?
Yeah, I would have kept it. But yeah, and then my 46, both of my 46s I think one was given to me. My current car was given to me. It's actually still registered in my boy Jojo's name. He's like, are you ever going to transfer the title? Because I keep getting registration things in the mail. And I'm like, nah, bro. Like, this is your car. And then my white one, I think I bought for like $2,000 running. And then the 7 Series, $1,500. So
Jeez.
they've always just been affordable. And
Yeah.
I've always liked them. The interior's always nice in them and comfy. And 90s luxury, bro. I'll tell you what. The 7 Series, the 90s luxury was well ahead of its time.
Right.
So
Right. And European cars typically have been ahead of the curve too in terms of like innovating on new features. Like I know Mercedes specifically, I think it's the S-Class is always like the flagship, technology car to watch. But I know Beamer hasn't been far behind them either. So they've always been just like the the pinnacle of luxury.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean,
Innovators.
people don't realize how cheap parts are just for all of them. I mean, I was looking when I was shopping for a daily, getting like an E90, and it's like E90 parts are cheaper than 240 parts that I need.
Oh yeah.
And so it's just mind blowing because I'm so used to paying, gosh, I mean, now it's like $350 for one wheel hub, and whereas like an E90 wheel hub's cheap. I mean, it's just like, I don't know,
Yeah.
different trade offs like that you don't think about.
No.
Now,
And
do
then
you,
obviously you don't get the nostalgicness of a 240. I understand the appeal of a 240. I personally don't care to build one.
yeah, not in today's market.
But I get it. Like I understand why people really like those cars. They're dope cars.
Yeah. Do you think that there's like a cutoff for like a Beamer where you wouldn't buy anything newer than X? I mean, everything that you've got is obviously 90s ish.
Yeah, 90, early 2000. No. My dream car right now is a brand new M2. Like I really want that
Yeah.
car. And there's this thing, I mean, it's still not very well known in the States, but the DCT transmission, what the boys are doing over in Europe with the DCTs is insane. It's the future of drifting, 1000%.
Let's talk about that. So I don't know what that means. I'm not a Euro guy at all. So what are these
DCT.
in? What's the benefit of them?
So DCT is a dual clutch transmission, and I'm very new to this, so forgive me if I say something that's wrong. But my understanding is DCT dual clutch transmission, so it's an automatic, but it still has gears in it and the clutch. But the clutch is activated, I believe, hydraulically via electronics or something. So, anyways, it takes a 5-volt signal to disengage the clutch. And they have 7 speeds in them. They come in all kinds of BMW chassis. The M2 has the race model. The M2 competition has a DCT in it. That's the BMW 7-speed. Ford did it with the Mustang. There's a couple of guys who have done it, but it's essentially DCT transmission is a paddle shifted transmission, like in a GTR R35.
Right.
So you get split times of shifting of like whatever 28 milliseconds or whatever it is, faster than my refresh rate on my gaming PC. But essentially, you can shift the car ridiculously fast. You can put a clutch pedal that is on a 0 to 5-volt signal,
Yeah.
like a fuel level sending type thing.
Right.
So you can still have a clutch in the car, and you can clutch kick the car. And then the part that
Interesting. I
gets
see what you're saying.
the part that gets super gangster, which I was like, you could do what? Is that you can send a 5-volt signal from your handbrake and auto disengage the clutch for you. Which I cavemanned out my last round.
I see what you're saying.
And I pulled the handbrake without pushing the clutch like an idiot, and I totally lost the race because of it. But I'm dumb. DCTs aren't. You can pull the handbrake, 5-volt signal disengages the clutch. You could stay matted on the throttle.
Yeah.
Pull the handbrake. You go straight to limiter, so you're and then you release the handbrake, and the clutch re-engages, and you're ready to go. So you can stay flat-footed and just pulse the handbrake behind somebody. And I was just like, and on turbo cars, from my understanding too, is that the car never falls out of boost. It actually maintains and creates boost in between shifts.
Jeez.
So it makes turbo cars, all the turbo guys out there, it makes them drive closer to a V8 style. So I just see what DCTs are doing in Europe, and I'm like, I gotta get one of those. So I think the next car I build is going to be a giant V8 with a DCT behind it, and it's not going to be oriented toward Formula Drift at all. It's just going to be a total media car. And if Formula Drift wants to stop being stiflers with their rules, then I'll take that car to FD at some point in my life. But
that was actually one of the talking points that I had on here was about rules and driving as a comp driver. Like if you were a rule maker for one day, like what is something that you would change about comp driving that you think is either like a limitation or unevens the playing field or whatever? I would just narrow it to like what's one rule or standard that you would change.
Yeah, so Prospec's easy for me to comment on because I've been there and done that type of thing. The tire rule is the best rule that we have, tire and weight. And I like the idea of everybody's on the same exact tire, and everybody has to be above the 3,000 mark or 2,800 mark. I can't remember what it was. It
Oh
was like
wow.
2,800 pounds or something. So you couldn't be under 2,800 pounds, and you could only have a 255 on the back of your car. That evens out the playing field pretty freaking much. Minus and specifically on the GT Radial, which is a phenomenal tire. I actually really like it, and I'm not signed up for any working with them this year, so I'm not being paid to say this. I really, really like the GT Radial, and the reason that I like it is because it's a very much so. It's a good tire, but if you have 1,000 horsepower on the 255, like some of the guys do in the class, you blow the tire off. So someone like me who's only at 620, and obviously I'm coming from a biased position because I am one of the lowest horsepowers in my class. Uh, it makes those fast guys a little bit slower. So it gives me an opportunity to keep up with them, but you can only throw so much traction down through a 255.
Right.
So I like the idea of that, and everybody being on the same tire. When we were on the Achilles has a ton more grip than the GT Radial. Um, but the big misconception is that you want a ton of grip. Like you don't want too much. Too much will make you bobble. It will cause you. It will make the car very difficult to drive, especially if you don't have the horsepower to spin. Even a 255, we struggled with 620 horsepower. We struggled to spin the Achilles 255,
Wow.
and
Jeez.
the setup of the car was completely different.
Yeah.
But it was to the point where it was just like, dude, this is too much. Like, get rid of this crap. It and they were the only tire I think at the time that was involved in Pro Spec. I can't remember. But essentially what happened with that tire was the 1,000 horsepower guys could run that thing at like 10 pounds and it
Yeah.
would mob on you, where I have to run the tire at like 40 pounds or 30 pounds minimum in order to get it to spin because it just had way too much grip. That combined with the mechanical grip that we had in the car was a poor setup. Like the car should have been mechanically a lot looser because we had such a gripped up tire. But that's in hindsight. We didn't realize it at the time. But yeah, the rule that I would do is leave the tire, everybody on the same tire, keep the weight the same, and just make that the standard. Now they're implementing pedal assemblies, and pedal assemblies can't be in the cars now. You have to have stock pedals. You have to have a
Really?
stock steering column. Yeah, dude, they're just making the class like that's one of the big reasons why I'm not going back this year, which is, hey, this is my announcement. I'm not going to Formula Drift this year. But yeah, they're changing all these rules, and it's like, man, but what about all the guys who we already have our roll cages built in, and we have our steering columns and our pedals built around our roll cages? Like, what the hell? Like,
Right.
what's the deal? Are we gonna get like essentially grandfathered in because this doesn't actually give you a competition benefit over another guy who doesn't want to run stock pedals or wants to run a stock steering column? It literally does nothing for you competitively beside positioning yourself in the car in a safe position,
Right.
putting you in between those B pillars, right? It's a big part of it, and it's comfort and it's all these other things, but they're taking all that from us because they want to make the sport, this is a quote, they want to make the sport more affordable. And it's like, well, it's not required that we do these things. So by you requiring us to not do these things, the sport didn't become more affordable because, again, there's no competitive edge. It's just comfort, and it's just it's comfort and it's safety. So what the hell is the deal? And we had a big meeting about this, and all the pro spec guys were in the meeting, and you know, Jim and Sage were all in the meeting with us, and they put themselves in the hot seats. And I told them at the end of the meeting, I said, hey, I really appreciate you guys for putting yourself in that position because people were not happy with them, and we were
Right.
going off. I was specifically one of the loudmouths in the meeting. You give me an opportunity to question you, I'm gonna do it. But yeah, they're changing the rules, and I'm not happy with it at all. And I know there's not a lot of drivers who are happy with it, but in the same way that society has always worked, if the people band together, we can overthrow these rules and show them like, hey, yeah, like none of us can make it now because you turned all of us law-abiding drivers, rule-abiding drivers into criminals essentially overnight, and now we are not allowed to compete with you unless we go do X, Y, and Z. And it's just unfortunate because a lot of people aren't happy with it, and it's one of the major reasons why I'm not going back.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in cutting my car up and going backward with my build and my development and my partnerships, and the link ECU thing is a new rule. So I would just do away with all that. I think the rules were fine. I didn't mind, and again, I have a disclaimer, I have a dog box in my car, but I didn't mind the sequential aspect because sequentials do make a big difference. I believe in, and at least as far as the drag race to the first corner,
Right.
which could be, you can lose a race. You can lose a whole, sorry, the dog's got a
You're
ball
fine.
underneath my feet. You can lose a race from the start line to the first corner. You can lose the whole race right
Right.
there. And I've done it. I've won races because of that, and I've lost races because of that. So the sequential, I guess I can understand that. But then there's the argument too of like, well, if you're going to limit sequentials, why don't you limit horsepower? But as far as the upcoming, because this is just where I am, I would leave the horsepower cap, whatever you want. I don't give a damn. But I would make sure everybody's on a spec tire and there's a spec weight for the class. And then within all that, do whatever the hell you want. Because
Right.
again, you could throw 1,500 horsepower at the car. You're not going to get it to hook up, or you're going to blow the tire off in the first lap. And then good luck on the second one doing anything significant to get a W.
Yeah. I got you. Do you think, I mean, just in your opinion,
Yeah.
is there like an ideal rule set that could be implemented, or do you think it's kind of always going to be give and take, based on people's preferences?
The problem is with people are never going to be satisfied. I'm one of them. I mean, I guess I could be satisfied pretty easy if they just left things alone to a degree. But no, you're always going to find, yeah, if you're always going to find somebody who's upset. Like there's people in the meeting who like the rule change, and most of those people had stock steering columns and stock pedals in their cars. There's people who didn't mind the Link ECU swap that we have to do this year because they are partnered up with Link ECU. So there's never going to be, you can't satisfy people. And I think that's a big problem in today's world, is that people think that, oh, we can get to some type of compromise where everybody's satisfied. It's just like, it's not going to happen.
Right. Right. And especially on that kind of scale too, where it's like a national driving,
right.
Like everything's going to be so different.
Make the rules, and the people, if you're willing, like you make the rules like to what you want, and just understand that there's going to be consequences to whatever rules you put in place, whether it be people don't want to come or people do want to come. That's not up to the rule makers to decide. That's up to the competitors to decide if they are willing to bend to those rules. And so for me, I'm not interested. So for that reason, I'm out. Shark Tank's reference. What's up, baby?
Well, I'm going to do a way throwback to earlier in the conversation. We were talking about, how a lot of stuff that you do now as far as driving goes is Hawkfest, right? It's like, how hard can we throw this thing into a corner?
Yeah.
What do you think is like the scariest driving that you've done, or maybe a point that you've hit where you're like, oh, maybe I should dial this back a hair? What's a memory or a moment that you may have had?
I haven't really had one yet. I feel like I haven't pushed the envelope to the degree where I'm like, oh, I'm going to die.
It's probably different being a driver too, right? Where it's like, you kind of know the control of the car. Whereas if you're riding with somebody else, then you're like, you don't even know what the driver's thinking.
Oh my God. Okay. Look, there is a really big difference, okay, in being a driver and a passenger. And it's usually the transmission tunnel. And it is terrifying being on the wrong side of that. It is the absolutely worst feeling in the world being in somebody else's hands. Okay. What moment in my life did I think it was too much? It was me riding shotgun with my boy Eric in the Togay in the mountains.
Yeah.
And me telling him like, yo, your car can't really handle this, bro. And him going, no, it's fine. And then us almost going off the side of the mountain. Yeah, that was the moment where I realized like I'm never riding shotgun with anybody ever again.
Yeah.
But no, in my own driving, no, I haven't really found it yet, dude. Because I don't think I've done anything that's like, my aspirations, whenever I look at something and I compare myself to people, I look at the pinnacle of everything. Like, somebody thought, oh, you're popular. And I'm like, yeah, dude, but have you ever heard of Chris Pratt? Like, that dude's popular. Right. Like, I always see these, and it's not like a humble thing or a humility thing, but I'm just like, no, there's like real celebrities out there, and there's real badass drivers out there, and like, yeah, I might be nearing some type of height in driving, but I'm still not Travis Pastrana. You know what I mean? I'm still
Right.
not Chelsea Denofa. I'm still not. If you want to look at the greatest drifter, and it's not even arguable, so just everybody shut up out there. I'm not James Dean, right? Like, he's the greatest driver on the planet when it comes to drifting. I'm not him. So it's like when I get to those levels and I can beat those guys, then I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, like I've made it. You know what I mean?
You're right.
But yeah, I'm never gonna be James Dean. Uh, and I'll probably never be a legend like Travis Pastrana. But those are my standards of, like, you know, have you reached the pinnacle of driving? No, not even close.
Yeah.
Not
And
even close.
let's talk about kind of this. I'm not going to call it a shift to rally, but taking on more of a rally.
Yeah.
Just starting rally, basically. Like, what was the incentive for that, and what's the learning curve like going from drifting to rally?
Yeah, completely different. Racing's terrifying. Drifting's not scary at all. If you've ever been in a drift car or driven a drift car, it looks like it's really out of control, but it's really in control.
Right.
And then when you watch like rally guys, it's like, oh, like, no, like there's a lot of time where they're not in control, and you just see them like, like it's pucker point the whole time.
Yeah.
It's clenched butt cheeks the entire time those guys are driving. But no, it's terrifying. I just want to get involved into another discipline of driving. My wife and I were talking and saying, like, hey, so is this like it? Right? Like, we just keep going to Formula Drift. We keep paying these monstrosities of like bills that it takes to race, because racing's not cheap, and I don't know why they keep trying to make racing affordable. It's like, hey, racing's never been affordable unless you're foot racing. Even that, you need to buy shoes.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, racing's just not affordable. It's not an affordable sport unless you have major backing, which we've been blessed with some awesome companies. Hoonigan, Black Rifle, GT Radio, all those guys have been big parts in helping us get to where we were last season. But this year coming into it, we're just like, hey, like, yeah, do we continue to, beat this dead horse of FD, which a lot of people feel is dying? And viewership doesn't really show it. Competitors and major drivers dropping out of the series kind of shows a little bit more, as far as like losing a Forrest Wang and things like that. But yeah, you have all these other series coming up, and so anyways, I'm already down a rabbit hole in my head and where I'm gonna go with that. But yeah, jumping into the rally thing was more so like, hey, we need to get involved. When you start studying people, because I compare myself to the biggest guys out there. So when you look at somebody like an LZ, right? LZ comes in, he's had 4 years under his belt of competitive driving, or 5 years or whatever it was that he's been in FD, but now he's on RTR, right? And people go, well, it's because he has a YouTube following. You're like, yeah, you're damn right. It's because he has a YouTube following. Like, he's playing the game, and he's playing it in a different way than anybody else has done. And
Right.
he's a smart dude. I haven't really had an opportunity to have like a full ass, like a whole conversation with him, about like, I haven't got to pick his brain. And so, but just from the outside looking in, I go, okay, well, you have somebody who came in, some BMX kid who came in now and is doing crazy things in the drift space, who has done things that guys took 15 years to accomplish. He did them in 4 years, right? Or at least he wasn't going broke the 15 years of trying to get to this point. He was making tons of money or whatever. He's gotten himself to a position where he's very well off,
Right.
in a matter of however long his vlog's been up, 10 years, maybe even 15 years. I don't know. But whatever, his vlog's grown extremely fast. And so he builds all this marketing potential, and so he builds all this financial backing, and then you can go and jump into RTR and like, yeah, do you deserve the seat? Absolutely. Like, why not? Maybe you haven't put in the same time. Like, and it's cool too to see Chelsea next to LZ, right? Because you have someone who has come in a very short amount of time, and you have someone who has, I think at one point, 13 motors in a season or something crazy, right? So they're just two different worlds that they come from. But studying LZ, seeing what he's done, seeing that he has multiple cars, different styles of driving, different fan bases and things like that, we thought, hey, what's another racing that we can get involved that's affordable? And we thought rally. And then I realized after saying that rally cars themselves are disposables. It's not like clutches and tires like in
Right.
drifting, right? So you can wrap your whole car around a tree and lose the whole thing and have to start from scratch. Um, but we just wanted to do something that was a little bit different. And I've always been interested in rally. I've always liked all drive cars. My mom has a Subaru. She's got an STI, same year in '06 and all that. So I wanted to. The car's just been close to the family and close to my heart for a long time. So I was like, hey, if I'm gonna get into something else, let's do something all-wheel drive and let's do something in the dirt. There's tons of mountain roads around here in Southern California, little back fire cuts and stuff that we can go shred in. There's actually a little lot that you'll see in shameless plug in our YouTube channel. In the next episode, we go and there's a lot up the street that we go and get to go shred in. There's a whole gravel fire road over there. So, yeah, the thought process is really just build a bigger fan base, do more things, develop more driving disciplines,
Right.
and see where it goes. Who knows, right? So
Yeah.
we've got some plans with Hoonigan and Ron over there. Obviously, like about the Black Rifle guys, and they're all doing rally stuff now too, and with
It's
Texas
making a
State.
comeback, I feel like, for sure.
Yeah, so I want to go do all that stuff with those guys. So I got to put myself in a position of media, right? So the best way for me that I see is like, okay, let's build a Subaru. Let's get some guys on board. We'll build something dope, and then we'll go attack the rally space like no one really has, right? We'll go make sick videos. We'll do the ridiculous center axis donuts, and we'll beat the hell out of the Subaru. We'll drive it like it was intended to be driven. I mean, you only see pros doing that, right? Like you only see these big manufactured teams doing that, or you see like Ken Block doing that. And other than that, no one's really involved in a Subaru and like driving it the way that I would like to drive my Subaru.
Right on.
So
Yeah.
it's like let's do Subaru. Why not? No real reason besides just have the ability to create more content and drive something different.
Yeah. Right on. And then, dude, lastly, man, you've been awesome. So thank you for your time today.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me.
What's the drift fad that you're really stoked to go away? We had Lambo doors, we had crazy Rocket Bunny. What's something that you're like, all right, I've seen enough of it?
Shoot, the drift fad that I'm ready to see go away.
Flake paint.
Oh my God. You freaking nailed it.
Was that it?
Oh my God, for the love of God, stop doing flake paint. I just don't like it. People, okay, hear me out. You guys could do whatever the hell it is that you want to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I absolutely despise flake paint. Like, I do not like it. I don't like the glitter. I don't like
I was just bullshitting. This is hilarious.
No, dude. Oh my God, I can't stand it. Because at a point in like even in for us in like Pro-Am, that was like the thing. Like,
yeah.
Yo, I stripped my engine bay, and then I went out and bought this like rainbow glitter, and I sprayed it all black, and I threw rainbow glitter in the clear. And now look at it under the light, dude. It turns like all these RGB and stuff, and I'm like, God, dude, I hated it. And I'll say there are some people who can pull it off very well, but majority cannot do it. Like, it just doesn't. And this is all opinion based, obviously. But yeah, I hate that. I'm tired of the flake paint. I can't stand it. I like just basic gloss. I'm vanilla, bro.
Yeah.
I'm basic.
Actually, I do want to pick one more thing before we get out of here.
Let's talk. Let's go. I'm here all
dude,
day.
I gotta pee like Seabiscuit, dude. I'm ready to.
Dude, I'm ready to go.
What's the inspiration behind the overall like design of Holdfast and the livery on the car? Like, it's all very Americana, but where did that come from?
Yeah, so we got involved with oh shoot, she opened the curtains. We got involved with Black Rifle, and so the car has always had an inspiration from my dad. From the very first race we did, we had the American flag. Can you close the thing? Yeah. We had a American flag and stripes, stars and stripes on the front fenders, and it was like, this is for my dad, because it was 2015, the year after he had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So we've always had a tribute to my dad. In there has always had some type of stars and stripes, whether it be, the Hot Boy stars and stripes that kind of came from the flag that transformed into that. We've always done something like that. So then coming into the Black Rifle deal was kind of funny, because I guess I was supposed to wait and have one of the guys over there design my car for me. And in my first time being with a big company like that, I was like, I'll design it. Don't worry about it. I got this, blah, blah, blah. Because we always just design our cars and then we release them. We never have to check in with anybody. And so what we decided to do was, my father served in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam era. Never quite made it to Vietnam, but served during the time, was stationed in like the Philippines and stuff. So
Good old Clark.
pretty close. So at the time, and during the Vietnam era, tiger camo was like the pinnacle of camo
Right.
at that time, right? But it wasn't issued by the United States, so our guys couldn't get it unless they special ordered it, had it delivered, and then Amazon primed it or whatever, and then they would get it and they can outfit themselves. So tiger camo, I was like, yo, like we should do something with tiger camo. And then we were like, in like all my liveries tend to have a meaning. I only have one that has 0 meaning. It doesn't mean anything. But this one was very sentimental. But we had the tiger camo for my dad. And then when it came to like putting logos on the car, we'll like, let's do red for the sacrifice. And then when we wanted to do the red, we were like, let's put a white border around it. And then we came up that the white would be significant toward, or I'm using the wrong word. The white would represent the purity of heart for people who serve, right? Because there's this pureness of serving. Like I don't know how many reasons you can serve a lot, but like it's either like you're actually patriotic and you want to serve this country, or like you have nowhere to go with your future, which was something like my dad did. But there's still a pureness of like sticking it out and going through all the basic right. Training and getting yelled at, especially in the Marine Corps and all that stuff. I'm sure everybody deals with it, but you just always hear the Marine Corps is very harsh when you're going through boot camp. But sticking out and going through that and the pureness of heart to say like, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to serve my country. So with the tiger camo being representative of for my dad, and then the red and the white being sacrifice and purity of heart, though that was kind of like the big meaning behind why we did what we did. And then there was obviously a big influence from Black Rifle as well, because we have the tiger camo RTD cans.
Yeah.
And those things look sick and they taste great. Get yourself some Black Rifle. I'm just saying.
Throw them the promo code.
yeah. Micah Diaz, all caps, no spaces, baby. 50% off the first purchase. Let's go. Yeah, I practice that. I say it on Twitch all the time.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, it's that was the inspiration behind it, man. There's always been something meaningful. Like I don't ever want to just like throw a design out there,
right?
Because I have, and people are like, "What does this one mean?" And you're like, "Nothing, dude. It's just fire.
It just looks cool." But even down to like the font and stuff like that, what's the background on that kind of choice? Because it's a lot of like, in my mind, it's very
death metal.
Is it? Yeah.
No, it was weird because it's sailor it's got a sailor inspiration style font to it from like back in the day. And I actually was sitting on my mom's couch at her house when I was living with my mom, and I was like, I gotta come up with something new. So I actually hand drew the Holdfast logo, which is actually right here. This is the very first drawing of the Holdfast logo that I did by hand at my mom's house on a piece of paper with a Sharpie. And there's actually still pencil and stuff.
Oh, nice.
There. But yeah, I drew that.
That's the OG.
Yeah, this is it. And it's actually like our logo now is just a scanned picture of that. Like that's
quick. Somebody make that an NFT.
Yeah. Somebody make that an NFT and sell it, bro.
Quick.
I screenshot.
He just gave NFT, a clean screen cap. Let's go.
Yeah, take it, boys. But yeah, no, that was just hand drawn. Like you could even see it on the backside, like the ink bleeding through the back of the paper.
Yeah.
Like that, I drew that by hand, and I always go whenever I'm designing something. I always go on Google and I'll type in, Holdfast or Space Invaders or whatever, Hard Times, and I'll go look at like a bunch of different designs, get some inspiration, and I'll try to, make my own from that inspiration. And that was what was birthed out of my brain on my mom's couch, sitting there one day. And then I walked around with this paper and I showed all my friends, and I was like, hey, what do you think about changing Try Hard to this? And then one of my buddy's mom was like, I think you should hold fast to Try Hard because I like Try Hard better. And I was like, you're funny. Definitely going Hold Fast now.
Yeah.
He's like, you did it. Signed, sealed, delivered.
Hell yeah. Right on, man.
Yeah, dude.
Well, anyways, dude, we'll start wrapping up. Let people know where they can find you and what you got going on this year.
Yeah, so we'll be you can find me on YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. All the same. So it's all Micah _Diaz_ because somebody owns Micah Diaz. And he has like 8 followers, and I hate him for it.
Too many Micah Diaz's. Yeah.
Just give me your name. There's actually a lot. It's weird. I was like, yeah, I'm super unique. Actually, my real name's Michael, but I changed it to Micah because my dad wanted to name me Micah.
No way.
Like,
when did you change it?
Oh, this was when I was a child.
Mm.
Yeah, I was a child. My dad was like, my dad was super pissed at my mom because he wanted to name me Micah. My mom wanted to name me Michael because my dad's name is Michael.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, I don't want no Junior, like blah blah blah. He's all pissed because I guess he has a brother named who's Junior from his dad, and all his dad's crap transferred over to his name, and so they're now like the IRS. All these fools are chasing my uncle, and my uncle's like, I'm not the same guy. That guy's dead. Blah blah blah. So my dad didn't want me to play that game, which I still play that game because my mom. But no, my mom wanted to name me Michael. My dad wanted to name me Micah. So my mom was like, well, I'm naming him Michael. And my dad was like, well, I'm calling him Micah. And we'll see which one sticks. And yeah, I was like, yeah, I want to be rebellious.
Micah stuck.
I went with Micah and thinking I was unique. And then, yeah, you go Google it. And there's like a million of us out there.
That's probably fewer than Michael Diaz.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there's fewer for sure. But yeah, a Hebrew name and a straight Spanish name, you would think there'd be hard to find somebody that has those two mixed names. But yeah, so that's my name. But yeah, we'll be out there doing rally stuff, hopefully getting down to Texas and hanging out with the Black Rifle guys and doing some stuff with Hoonigan with the rally car. And then we'll be on it's kind of still hush hush, but there's some plans for us to go on the road with Hoonigan. So once they release that, I'll be able to talk about it a little bit more. But we'll be out there, man. Look for us at your local tracks in SoCal. If there's some cool event going on, we'll bring the car out.
Right on.
We'll see what we can do. Try to hug fest, bro.
Hell yeah. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, you can find us on Instagram, Sincerely Japan Podcast. You can email us, sincerelyjapanpodcast@gmail.com. We're going to put all the links in the description. This episode is the first episode brought to you by Tire Streets, which we're super stoked on. You may have seen it on social by the time this comes out. But you can use the code Sincerely15 at Tire Streets to get a pretty hefty discount on some dope tires. So anyways, without further ado, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Later days, boys.